Bob, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Chris, good to be here.
So I'm excited about this because this is my first time doing a proper video podcast recording. And of course, I chose you to be my first guest. And of course, you've come here rocking out this green screen, perfect background with all your branding on. And I'm gutted, a little bit jealous, but I'm looking forward to the conversation nonetheless.
Yeah, my whole motivation is come here and show you up, right? Because I want to make the host look really, really like tacky and embarrassed. Like I'm
Mission
jealous.
accomplished.
I'm really jealous of your chair though. That's a gamer's chair. Look at
It
that.
is.
So I mean, you got that on me for sure. I love that chair.
I'm rocking this because I bought it a year and a half ago. And because nowadays, if you try and find them, it's remarkably hard to get anything delivered within 6 months.
Yeah, you can't get anything delivered, and it's twice as expensive. Isn't it amazing how the free market works?
Yeah, the world has changed. But listen, Bob, let's get started by, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your background, and how
Yeah.
you've got to where you are today?
Yeah, I'm Bob Regnerus. I live in the central part of the United States, Chicago, Illinois. Sure, you all heard of it. Chicago Bears, Blackhawks, Chicago Bulls, those types of teams. I'm a White Sox fan, so I'll never say that it's also home of the Cubs. Um, but I have lived. I'm born and raised here. I have been in digital marketing since really 1999. So I'm going to be going like into a fourth decade. I guess I spanned the early part of the decade, but I built my first website. I'm a programmer by trade. So I was doing contract for hire work, Y2K work. That's when all the computers were supposed to shut down on January 1. So I was a contract for hire working on Y2K projects, programming on mainframes. And I got really excited about the next thing because, okay, 2000 is going to hit. We're either going to like go to Armageddon or there's going to be opportunity. And the opportunity to me was the internet. So in my free time, I was building websites, and I built a website for a client. They are still a client today, 20 plus years. Built them a website, an e-commerce site, and the question after we built it was, "Hey Bob, this is awesome. Like, how do we get traffic to the site?" I said, "Oh, I know how to do that," and I had no idea. That's where I started my internet marketing, digital marketing education. So I've been practicing and honing my craft. I've done all kinds of. I've mostly focused on paid advertising. Never really got into the SEO game. So. I started on GoTo.com, Overture, Yahoo, pay-per-click, Google AdWords, and then of course now into Facebook. So I have been doing this a number of years. I get really excited about figuring out strategies for turning $1 into $2 for me and my clients. So I think that's why we're here today. And of course, I wrote this book. You see it there on the screen. It's the Ultimate Guide to Facebook Advertising. It's in its fourth edition. I'm the current co-author along with Perry Marshall and Tom Maloche, and really excited. The book's coming out as of this recording. It's going to be due out in a week, but it's available for pre-release on Amazon. So
That's awesome. And to be fair, so I'm ultimately jealous because I've got this theory about the Y2K programmers it must have been to some extent so relieving on the 1st of January to basically know that no matter what you programmed, whether it was good or bad, everything was fine. It turns out there wasn't an issue.
there wasn't an issue, although we were at a New Year's Eve party, and I remember the host turned the lights off right at midnight, so that was a little bit of a heart palpitation, but we survived that. It was just a practical joke.
Well, listen, I mean, this is a huge topic. And again, for everyone
Yeah.
listening to this podcast, we try and help small to mid-sized entrepreneurs, business owners. And one of the biggest things is exactly like you just said, right? You can build a website and it's great. People
Yeah.
go out there, they find WordPress.com, they find Squarespace.com, they find Wix.com, and all of a sudden, bang, they've got a website and it seems
Yep.
really easy. The reality is SEO is a long-term play. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of research, hours, which a lot of small business owners don't have.
Yeah.
And obviously Facebook does, in my opinion anyway, still offer a huge amount of opportunity for small business owners. So can we start off by just getting into the really basics of how you can use Facebook advertising to help push traffic? And then maybe we'll go into some of the more complicated ways of marketing.
Yeah, this is really who the book is written for. I mean, I've primarily worked for small business owners and entrepreneurs, either coaching them or, as an agency. And I think part of the intimidation factor is a lot of these tools, whether it's Google AdWords or Facebook or SEO, is the complication factor. Being able to understand, like, how do I even use the interface, and how do I, like, get a result out of it? And I think the odds are really kind of stacked against us. I like to say Facebook is Vegas, and they're the house. The odds are in their favor. And I like to think that with what I know and what I've taught people is, like, I'm helping stack the odds in your favor. So Facebook is a great way to be able to find your targeted customers, either with demographic or psychographic data. The first thing before you even run an ad is you got to have a good product. I think you and I work with enough clients over the years. Like, okay, like, the prerequisite before you're even going to run an ad on any platform is you really have to have a good product or a good service. And so we're gonna go into this discussion with that as a prerequisite. But then it really comes down to, what do you know about your customer? And I think one of the mistakes that most beginning business owners, entrepreneurs make is thinking that everybody's their customer. And they're going to put an ad out to the world and the money's going to pour in. And that's not really the way you make money. That's actually the best way to lose money, is to have that philosophy going in. Facebook will gladly take your credit card and will gladly consume your budget and show your ad to a bunch of people that aren't targeted. So what we like to do before we sit down and run any ad, whether it's a new client, existing client, is let's brainstorm what we know about our customer. Let's write down things they like. Let's write down geographical constraints, age constraints, gender constraints, all the things that would help us narrow down our audience to a reasonable size, so that when we put an advertisement in front of them, they're more likely to respond than not. And yeah, I just think that's a big mistake that people make, Chris, is they just really don't think about their customer too much.
I saw something the other day on, I think it was a tweet, but it might have just been sort of a cheeky meme that had been made. But the idea was, how do you make $1 million, or sorry, how do you make $100,000 in revenue off Facebook advertising? And, you start with $1 million. And the idea of it, it sounds terrible, but I know so many people who have been burnt. I know so many people who have had a really hard time. And again, we've had over the years varying levels of success, but we've always managed to find success at some level. And I think
Yeah.
what's really important is that there's so much out there, and I call it the shiny new toy syndrome.
Yeah.
And people kind of get really panicky right now. It's TikTok. I should be on TikTok. I'm an accountant. I work with really important, serious financial services firms. I should start a TikTok account about what I do as an accountant. And you're sitting there going, what? This kind of element. Facebook is tried and tested. Facebook makes a ton of money. Yes, Facebook's changed the rules on us time and time again, and they've killed us in terms of organic traffic and organic reach and everything else. But it is yet still the single biggest platform whereby people are congregated. And literally today, I have spent about 45 minutes to an hour identifying 12 potential target audiences by working on demographics, on key interests, on what they do, where they're based, gender, age, everything
Yeah.
else, because it's the only place that we can do that to this level of detail. And that
Yeah.
to me is where the opportunity really kind of lies. And you mentioned it as, the demographic, targeted demographic, or you said a psychoanalytic,
Psychographics.
psychographic,
Psychographics.
sorry.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between those two, and also what that kind of targeting really looks like when people are trying to do this at home?
Yeah, so if you think about traditional media buying, the first thing you're always looking for is, it's kind of the Nielsen. We have that here in the US, the Nielsen index, which is like, give me an age group and a gender. So, it's like males 34 to 50 or things like that. That's kind of a basic thing. And of course, geography. So traditional media buyers go into a market and say they're going to run a television commercial. What they're going to do is they're going to look for programs that profile their buyers. So, if you're watching a lot of American football or Major League Baseball these days, you're going to see a lot of commercials that are targeted towards middle-aged males, because that's a primary psychographic. It's like, okay, middle-aged males watch American football. And so you're going to see a lot of ads that are targeted towards those. It's very similar to that inside of Facebook, but you can go much deeper than that. You can not only just say, all right, baseline is we're going to target middle-aged males, but we're going to actually target middle-aged males that like this particular football club or like this particular product. You could really start to create what are called detailed audiences, and because Facebook knows everything about us, right? We gladly give Facebook as much information as they open it up and just we put in our birthday. We like pages, we like posts, we visit websites. Facebook is tracking us. They know more about us than maybe our moms do, in terms of what we like and
Definitely
what we
more than
don't
our
like.
mums do.
Yeah.
Definitely more
Uh,
than our mums do.
yeah, and it's all powered by this little piece of code called the Facebook pixel. So not only do you go onto Facebook, the app, and you like this page, you like this post, those are all indicators to Facebook of kind of what you're built on. But then they also know how you behave, because off of Facebook, the pixel is installed on 1 billion websites. So they know your buying behavior, they know the sites you visit, they know, like, do you watch a lot of video, do you do a lot of reading, what type of purchases have you made? Like, they know all this about you. And this is obviously freaky to the consumer, right? And it's the subject of many documentaries, which I recommend you watch. There's a couple on Netflix. You have to know this as a consumer, but you also have to know this as a marketer, as an advertiser. Is this data is available to you? And there are people that use it for unscrupulous means, of course, but we want to use it for ethical means. We're trying to sell a great product or a great service to the marketplace, and we want to leverage that. And being able to use a platform like Facebook, which knows so much about our customers before they even know about us, is a huge competitive advantage. And you really want to lean into that. And if you're willing, Chris, I have kind of a shortcut for people to kind of circumvent all that work, if you want to hear
This is
it.
what they want to. This is what they want to hear, Bob. They're going to tell me to keep quiet now and just let you talk.
Yeah. So here's one thing. I call this a shortcut. It's not really a hack. It's a shortcut. And it goes back a couple years. I was actually at a meeting at Facebook headquarters. It's located in Austin, Texas, of all places. And I was talking to the head engineer for Facebook. Like, this is the guy that was in charge of coding the algorithm that decides what ads are shown. And he told me this. He said, there's a couple things that you need to know, and one of the things that I'm going to share right now is, we're better at targeting than you are. And what he meant is that we can spend hours building audiences and saying, okay, they like this magazine and they watch this TV show and this and that, and that's great to do, and you should do that exercise. But there's a shortcut that Facebook has, and it's called a lookalike audience. Now, this is based on it's a time and true method of modeling data, predictive behavior, and they have a very powerful AI or predictive mechanism. So the shortcut for most businesses, and the place that I start, is I want you to upload a list of customers into Facebook. All right. And most of us have a customer list, and that would consist of a name, an email address, and a phone number at a minimum. You can do an email address at a minimum, but I really like to have those 4 pieces of data. And if you have at least a couple hundred customers in a database, you can upload that into Facebook, and you could tell Facebook, hey, here are my customers. What I would like you to do now is model them, because I want to advertise to more people that look just like these 200 people that have already paid me money. Now, that's not revolutionary by a marketing standpoint, but for most Facebook marketers who are trying to generate cold traffic, this is an incredible shortcut. And I've tested this over and over. I'm sure you have too, Chris. Like, all right, let me try a lookalike audience versus an audience I build. And I can't beat the machine 9 times out of 10. Once in a while we'll do a little bit better, but that lookalike audience model off of my customers works way better than most audiences that I've spent hours trying to build. I don't know if it's been your experience, but for me, it's a fantastic shortcut.
So I think it's a great, great shortcut. And I think the hardest part for a lot of small businesses, especially when they're just starting, is not having that
Hmm.
200, 300, 500. And the more you have, the better that is,
Yeah.
right? So the
Yep.
bigger the sample, the better the modeling is, and the better the results are afterwards. The lookalike gets just more and more specific.
Yep.
But I think the hardest part is actually that very initial stage of crap, I've started something, I've built my Squarespace website, I've sat
Right.
back. Why
Right.
aren't the pounds rolling in or why aren't the dollars rolling in? And I think the hard part for people to understand is that there are so many levels to Facebook advertising. And people often get stuck in the trap of, yeah, you've got to pay to get your content to be seen by your own audience.
Yeah.
And yes, it's
Yeah.
true, we do now. And that's just part and parcel. It's the way of the world. It's one of those things,
Yeah.
but that's just one small element. So I was wondering, like, and again, I think that if you do have a client list, I'd say this
Yep.
to everyone. If you have a client list, get on top of that lookalike, get those into Facebook, and then figure out what that lookalike audience starts working
Yeah.
like for you. But if you don't have those initial
Sure.
100, 500, or anything like that, and if you are only at those stages where you have 10 or 12 or 15 customers, don't try the lookalike approach. But I'm going to ask Bob rather than me saying it. What are some of the ways that people can set themselves up for more success? We've
Okay.
talked about the targeting, and I think that is hugely important. We've already set the prerequisite of, you can't polish a turd. If your product is terrible, there's
Hmm.
no chance of us making a technique for you today on Facebook advertising that's going to
Right.
make any difference.
Right.
But how can people really get those initial steps of getting people to their website and hopefully converting some of them so that they get that confidence to build up and say, right, this obviously works and I can make money from this?
Yeah. So in the book, there's a couple of strategies. Number one is if you don't have a list of customers, perhaps you have a list of contacts. Most of us who are starting out, maybe we haven't driven traffic to our site before, but maybe we've spoken or we've done networking and we've got business cards and we've got leads. You can also upload that list into Facebook, and it's not as good as a list of customers, but it's also a decent list of people that are at least targeted towards you. So that's another way. Um, you could also drive some traffic to your site natively and build the detailed targeted list that we talked about with psychographic, demographic information. Um, I like it. I like to call the strategy, it's either called a video strategy or an article strategy. Depending on what your level of comfort is, what I love to do with cold audiences is lead with content. Facebook is really, really good at matching content to people. And even if you don't have a lookalike audience or a real defined target, Facebook is going to be able to literally read your content. All right, they're going to know. They're going to know based on keywords what your content is about and about who absorbs that content and reads it. And they're going to get really good at finding matches for you. So, I would go in and I would build my audience within Facebook, as much demographic constraints as I possibly can, and as much psychographic information that I could put in to get a reasonable size audience for where I'm going. And then I'm gonna have maybe 1, 2, or 3 articles that I'm driving people to my website or my blog, and I want to attract readers. That's one way to go. And what you're going to do is you're going to now build up what's called a website custom audience. So as people visit your website, what they're going to do is they're going to fire that pixel, and Facebook is going to keep track of the people that visit your website. And what you're doing, in effect, is building a list. Now, it's not an email list yet, but you are building what's called an invisible list of people that have visited your site. You've pixeled them, and now they become what's called a website custom audience. Now, this people who see your ad on Facebook and are interested in that article, and they click on that ad and they go to your website and they read that article, they're at least somewhat targeted. They've showed interest in your content. Okay. Now, maybe you're not a writer and you're more of a video person. The same strategy applies, except you create this content using video. You turn on your webcam or you turn your DSLR, you produce a couple of videos, you make Facebook video ads, and you keep track of people that watch those videos the same way that people visit your website. What you're doing is, if you run this for several days, probably over a couple weeks, depending on your budget, you're going to build a list of 50, 100, 200, maybe 1,000 people that have absorbed your content. And now you've got a list of people that you can then go after and maybe offer your product or service, or that next level of things. So even if you've never done it before, the best way that I found is to then create content that drives people in and helps, build your credibility and build an audience of people for you to market to.
I think one of the key things that people get wrong is lack of patience in those early
Mm,
stages. And
yeah,
what you've just mentioned there, we focus as an agency mainly on content, social media and content. That to us is
yeah,
bare bones. It's where everyone should be focused at. We'll often encourage, I mean, you said, webcam, your DSLR, keep it super simple. If you've got an
yeah,
iPhone or a Samsung phone in your pocket, you have everything you need. I'm
absolutely.
often very thankful that when I was like 18 in university, iPhones and 4K video capture wasn't on in
Right,
everybody's pockets. But today, as a small business owner, no one has an excuse, right? You can pick up your
right,
iPhone, you can talk straight to iPhone, and actually people will appreciate it. People know that it's raw, they understand it's just you talking to them, and it's a great way to create content quite easily,
yep.
quite cheaply, and even edit it on the phone. iMovie on iPhone, for example. I mean, this tech just did not exist
Yeah,
10
and if,
years
and
ago.
if like the tech is tripping you up, just find a 15 or 16-year-old. They'll be able to do it like 10 times faster than you because they know how to do it already.
Yeah, just find any one of your friends that has a 15-year-old kid and they'll probably extort you, but they'll take a few quid and they'll do that for you and it'll still be it'll be done, which is the important thing. But it's that
Exactly.
idea of stepping it, right? We
Yeah,
need multiple touch points. We need multiple ways of being in contact and building that relationship. And I often use the analogy of dating, right? You don't walk into a blind date and say to someone, me, you, married, 2 kids, and we'll buy a house. Let's go.
yeah,
You ready? You
yeah,
start by having that conversation. You start by asking questions. You start by telling people a little bit about yourself. And all of that builds this relationship, which means that when you go in for that sale, there's a relationship. You're not, hey, buy this today. And you go,
yeah.
whoa, what is that? I don't know I don't even know who that person is.
Well, Chris, it's funny. I talk about this a lot. Facebook is like a party, and you are a party crasher if you're an advertiser. So just imagine, like you're driving through a neighborhood, and you see there's a bunch of cars in front of this house, and they're all in the backyard, and they're celebrating whatever, a birthday, anniversary, and you put your product on your shoulder, and you walk into the backyard, and you start yelling like, "Hey, buy my product, like this is the best thing ever." Everyone's gonna look at you and be like, "Hey man, like what's the deal?" um, that's who you are as a Facebook advertiser. People are on Facebook, they're not there to like, I really want to find a good product or service today, I hope I see a good ad. Not in the least bit. No, what they're doing is they're looking at pictures of family, they're looking at pictures of friends, especially during COVID. It's like that's how people are connecting. They don't want to hear from you. So not only like, don't be the party crasher. What you said, Chris, is like, hey, you got to come in with something that captures their attention, that doesn't, offend them, that doesn't like throw them off while they're doing things that are more fun than reading your ad. You need something to hook them. You need something to like capture their attention. And for 99% of us, the first thing we're not going to do is say, hey, buy my product. Like we got to start a relationship with them. And that takes an investment. And I'm sorry, to maybe, break some people's hopes and dreams here, but a business is an investment. And even if you have the best product in the world, you're going to have to invest some money first in obviously product development, but also in marketing. You're not going to hit a home run out of the gate. Very few businesses do. And if you do, fantastic. But most of you are going to have to work. You're going to have to hone in a message. You're going to have to figure out the language to use with your marketplace so that you can convert those uninterested people into buyers. That's why there's so few people that ultimately succeed in business. It's because people give up too early. I'm hoping that people are listening to this podcast are not those type of people. They're the ones that are like, hey, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm going to keep working at this thing. If I know my product's good, if I know my service is good, then I'm going to keep going at it until I find the right message. And sometimes it's all it takes. You might be this close to success, You just got to figure out what that is. And once you figure that out, then, you've got something.
I have a good friend of mine who came on the podcast really early days, Travis Ketchum. He started Contest Domination, phenomenal
Mm,
platform. Started off as a
yeah.
WordPress plugin, then got built out into a SaaS platform. He's doing some other stuff now, but SendGrid style. He was fed up with them, so he started a whole new product just because he wanted to prove a point. So he's built out Campaign Refinery. But he's fantastic, like great guy. But one of the things that we talked about with him was the idea of landing pages and sales pages and copy and all of this. And I said, we've known each other since 2013. In those amount of years, how many sales pages do you think you've written? How many copy, squeeze, upsell, anything like that pages do you think you've written? He goes, if you include all of those sort of upsell, downsell, squeeze, he goes, I'm in the thousands, easy.
Yeah.
And I was saying there, and I was like, that's the key here, people. If you're listening to
Yeah.
this, and I say this about everything, it doesn't matter whether you're trying out video, whether you're trying out Facebook Live, whether you're trying out Facebook ads, it doesn't matter. It's not because you did one and it didn't work the way you had hoped that it means it
Mm,
doesn't work. It just means you haven't found the way that it will work. And these things, like a platform like Facebook, anyone that says to me, Facebook is dead, Facebook's done, Facebook's only for old people, Facebook, whatever you want to say, I don't mind. Honest truth be said, young people usually don't have that much cash to spend. Older people do. They have more income for different reasons and for different things.
yes,
But
sir.
even if that was true, it's the only place I know of right now where you can use multimedia, different formats, find the kind of targeting that you want, use retargeting, and get access to 1.5 billion people who log in every day. I mean, for most
Yep.
businesses, 10 clients for a service based business could make a huge difference. For a
Oh,
product
yeah.
based business, you might be talking about, low end or small price points, 50 to 100. You're still talking about an audience that's just a grain of sand in an immense beach that Facebook is. And if you can get the grit to say, right, I'm going to try this and I'm going to try different audiences and I'm going to test different creatives and I'm going to test different ads and I'm going to keep trying until I see what does and doesn't work. And you don't have to do tests. Actually, I won't say this next bit. I'll ask you. When people are testing, one of the biggest things that I find anyway, that they make a mistake on is that they'll go, I don't know how to say this politely, they go balls deep when it comes to their
Mm,
budgets. And
mm.
basically they end up burning out before they've even had a chance to figure out what does and what doesn't work. So from your side of things and from your experience, what are kind of some entry level starting points? People don't need to be spending 10 grand a day to figure out that it doesn't work. What are some of the things that they can do?
No, I will say this: money buys you time, and for most of us, we don't have a ton of extra money or time. But I do like to say, if you want to get results, the faster that you want the results, the more money you have to spend. But you don't need to spend 5 figures a day to really find things out about your market. I'll come back to your question. What you were talking about reminded me. I had a coaching client a couple months ago go through one of my courses, and it was kind of heartbreaking because she spent 5 years developing this product, and she spent $100 on Facebook ads and got zero sales. So she spent $100, zero sales, 5 years of product development. And she's like, Facebook doesn't work. I said, I'll call her Jane. I said, Jane, I said, like, you spent 5 years developing a product. Do you believe in the product? She's like, yeah, I believe in the product. Have people told you that the product is useful? Yes, people. Okay. Facebook is not the problem here. We have to work on some other things here. So we have a philosophy, Perry and I are kind of in sync with this, is, don't test the leaves first. Test the forest, test the trees, test the branches, test the leaves. So many people are like honing in on testing, like, I'm going to change the color of my headline on my website. No, we like to test macro things. The first thing that everybody should be testing is your product offer. The offer is the thing that people ultimately respond to. So before I start messing around with all the technical stuff on the landing page, I'm testing offers. I'm trying an offer. If I have a product and I don't know if it's going to sell better at $100 or $50 or $25, I'm testing that first. I'm going to try different price levels. I'm going to try different bundles of products. Like I want to see, like, does my market connect with my product? If I'm selling a service, are people going to respond more towards me offering them this book, or me doing a consult or free consult or strategy session? I want to test those things and find out at a macro level, like, is my offer working? And then once we get to that point, then it's like, okay, now let's focus in on some of these minor details and things like that. So if you want to save money and save a lot of heartache, test your offer first, which is really easy to do. You can drive half your traffic to one offer, half your traffic to the other offer. Really easy to do with Facebook ads. That's where I start, Chris. I don't know if you have a different philosophy, but that's to me the best way to be efficient and not blow a lot of money.
So I think I agree in terms of the offer. If you're, especially if it's a service based or if it's product based, price points.
Hmm.
One of my favorite examples of this was I was talking to a buddy at the beginning of this year, and I wanted to start using the meditation app Calm. And he was like that, right, before you subscribe to whatever the offer is on the website, on the app, he goes, just basically sign up for the free trial, go into your subscriptions. And then once you're in subscriptions, go into the Calm subscription, and you're going to see a ton of different price points. And you can basically choose the lowest one, save yourself a few quid. And literally, I don't know if they've done it because they just don't remember that they've got different test platform prices that they had at certain different points, or if they've just kind of left it because it's kind of nice for people to know about that as a little hack, and it's giving them more insight into where
Right.
people are actually comfortable paying.
Right.
And it's interesting because you don't necessarily go for the cheapest. And actually, I think it was If This Then That the other day sent an email out to everyone: get our pro subscription, you choose your price point. And it started from like $1.99 a month, $3.99, $5.99, $9.99, whatever it was.
Hmm.
And invariably, I said, I use this. I want the pro version. I'll take it. But I didn't go with $1.99, which is a weird psycho thing, like a
Right.
psychology thing. But I was like that. I'm not here to try and fleece you. I like the product. I want to use it. I want to support you. But actually, I wouldn't use it for $10 a month. But actually, for $3 a month, $3.99 a month, or whatever it was, I ended up choosing. And again, these are ways that you test your price points
Yeah.
you're offering. And most people get so quipped up, and we're working with a startup at the moment. They're focused on their price point based on the numbers and how they'll look on a
Yeah.
spreadsheet based on if I reach 100,000 users. And you're like that. Let's go back a step. The
Yeah.
market will tell us what people are willing to pay. And at this stage, no one knows about us, which is a
Right.
great way of working because it means you can test 90 different product price points and nobody would know the difference, right? No one's going to
Yep.
be sat there on a forum going, oh my God, this startup X that no one's ever heard of? I've seen two different price offers. Not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that's I worked for a competitor of Calm, and you're right. The startup mentality is like, let's just get as many users as possible. But it's interesting with Calm. I know they know what they're doing because of the level of spend that they have in the marketplace. They're running television commercials. Okay, you don't step up to TV advertising unless you kind of know what you're doing. And what I really like about your example is I bet they probably tried like two levels. They said, oh, let's do a $9.99 and a $5.99 or something like that. And they said, well, we're getting drop off here. I wonder if we added a $3.99 and then $1.99. And then they probably realized, oh my goodness, like we're getting a nice distribution here. If we didn't have this $1.99, we would have lost this customer. If we didn't have $3.99, we would have lost this customer. So, those are the types of things you only know by testing. But that type of testing is far more impactful than how they laid out their homepage, or their landing page in terms of getting signups. Right? There's all kinds of things we could optimize, and when you have large budgets and large teams, you could have multiple things going on in your organization. But if you are just kind of, like most business owners, you're running the business and you're doing the marketing, and maybe you're working with a freelancer, an agency, like test the forest, test the trees first. Those are the things that are going to ultimately determine your longevity and your profitability. Price is a great one. Offer is a great one. Those are the types of things you really want to focus in on, and then go ahead and test some of those other things, which I would consider middle tier or lower tier priorities.
It's interesting because with service-based industry people, especially anyone who's running a service, when we first meet them and they're talking to us about, I need a website, I need this, I need that, and we're sat there going, no, what you need to do is reach out to 5 people that you think potentially would buy your service and have a phone call with them. Have that chat. 5 people. If you get the idea that from 5 people, one says yes and 4 say no, you got to start thinking about what it looks like. If you get 2 to 3 that say yes, you're thinking, hang on a second, this works. If 5 people said, I'd buy that tomorrow if it was priced X, go figure out how to make that work. But it's something that people do get stuck in the weeds, right? They start looking at, well, what if I change the logo?
Mhm.
And you're sat there
Yes.
going, no, no one cares. No one
Yes, we need to
cares.
spend a lot of time. That logo is the problem. It's definitely the problem with this thing.
Are we going to go
That's
Helvetica or Comic Sans? That's the real question.
right. Do I use a burnt orange or do I use a sage type of you know, going back to my example of Jane, and this is an actual person. I changed her name. Here's what I told her, and your advice is brilliant. I said, here's what you're going to do. I said, is there any like garage sale, farmer's market, any situation where you could go sit at a table and put your product on the table and have conversations with people? She said, yeah. I said, well, that's what you need to do. What I need you to do is I need you to go face to face with your customers and find out like what are their objections. Like, is there something about the product that is holding them back, whether it's the price, whether it's the design, whether it's the color, whether it's that you haven't talked about the most important benefits. Like, you can get amazing market research if you just have conversations with folks. Like, your advice to somebody is like, have conversation on the phone with 5 people. Like, people don't want to do it, but it is the absolute right advice for people. Like, if you are absolutely cold going to a market, do not run an ad. Do not spend $1 on a website. Don't spend any money until you've had a conversation with your market and you have validated that your idea is at least marketable. I mean, that's such a brilliant strategy, Chris.
Well, at least one client, right? And especially with service based, there's no
Yeah,
product issues, there's no delivery issues, there's no you have to get the payment straight away, there's none
yeah,
of that. But you
yeah,
can have a conversation, and if somebody goes, that's exactly what I need a
yes,
consultant to help me do X, I need someone to help me with what I'm doing with Y,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what. And no matter how you think you look, forget about it. I'm starting up, be honest. This
yeah,
whole fake it till you make it, we, this organization that's
yeah,
mythical and that doesn't exist, doesn't matter. Talk to people straight up, explain the idea. This is how I want to work. This is why I'm starting this. After 20 years working for the big corporates, I realized it's
yep,
rubbish. I want to do it like this. And if people
yep,
jump at that, you're onto something. Build out from there,
yeah.
and it's going to be a great way to build.
And the best thing that you could hear is they would go, eh, right? That just saved you like $50,000.
Yep.
Like, you knew something's wrong. Like, you want them to be
And
like,
2 years.
yeah. I mean, you're like, no, they're wrong. It's an ego thing, right? We think we know all the answers, but man, like, you could just save yourself so much money and heartache if you could validate your idea. Like, what you're looking for is you want numerous people to go, that's a really good idea. And if you can get that, you've got something. Then go ahead and invest in the infrastructure. But until you sell that thing face to face, well, these days you got to sell it over Zoom or the phone. But sell them on your idea. Actually, try to get somebody. It's better than selling your ideas. Like, actually sell the service or sell the product. Then you really know they voted with their wallet. If you get somebody to vote with their wallet, then it's a thing. I talk about a client in the book. She developed a headband a number of years ago. It's an amazing success story, but she didn't go selling on the internet first. She didn't call me to help her with Facebook ads until she sold them to people at her gym. And she figured, all right, I've sold like 24 of these things, and I'm getting really good feedback. And all these people are willing to give me testimonials. I've got something. That's when we went to Facebook and we developed literally a 7-figure business out of that one idea. But she validated it first. And I made sure before I even ran an ad, like, okay, you've got 12 people. I'm sorry, it was 24 people that have bought them. Like, I think it's a good idea. Let's dip our toe in the water. So it's a really good way to validate things.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, again, there's tons of stories like that, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
Damon John from Shark Tank and Fubu Clothing and whatever else started at home, I think it was his mum that taught him how to knit and to crochet and to do all sorts of things, and started making
Right?
beanies. And that's how you start a business. And again,
Yeah.
actually, there was a really good thread on Twitter the other day of somebody saying this idea that entrepreneurship is about raising your Series A and having an exit and one thing and another. That's not how businesses are built.
Yeah.
And businesses don't have to be unicorn or nothing. It can be a solid way for you to earn a great income, and better than anything else, not work for somebody else, right? So
Yeah.
it's a case of building that from the ground up.
Yeah. That 90% of the businesses, Chris, you and I know this, these are the ones that we work with every day, are not Silicon Valley, investment type businesses. That's an industry, quite frankly, that I've had very limited experience with, and I'm glad, because it's a different world. I mean, I work with the serial entrepreneurs. They get their hands dirty. They're involved in the business. They put their blood, sweat, and tears and money into things. That's the type of businesses that make the world go round. Those are the people that have been the most affected by the pandemic. These are the ones we want to help. My goal of writing this book is obviously I want to teach people Facebook, and it's the ultimate guide, and I really feel it's the ultimate guide. But what I really want is for people to read this and to eliminate 80% of the waste in their accounts and 80% of the worry. I want people to pick this up who maybe have never run a Facebook ad, and maybe they become like Facebook agencies or a Facebook freelancer. They've created an income stream for themselves. That's what I really want to happen. I want to equip the people that are being taken advantage of by unscrupulous people, by people that, like I said, Facebook is a nameless, faceless type organization. They're going to take your advertising dollars, whether you're a good business or not. I want to teach you how to spend that money really wisely. And, I think that's ultimately what I want to see happen with this thing.
My last conversation with an account manager at Facebook, and one of the key things that he said to me, he goes, whatever happens for all your clients and for everyone else, just do me a massive favor, Chris. Never use the boost button. And I don't know what your thoughts on this are, but I'd love to hear it for everyone else on there. It's something I've said to people loads in the past as well. Go out there, build something for like a targeted audience, a particular advert, push the content you want to use, even if it uses the post that you want to get out there, but just don't use that boost button. And I don't know about you, what's your experience been?
Well, I'm not a boost button type of person. I will say there is a chapter in the book written by Dennis Yu, who's an amazing Facebook marketer, who teaches you how to use the boost button and not be an idiot. All right. There are ways to boost posts. It's not a strategy that I find particularly useful for me. Dennis's chapter actually talks about how to do it well so that you're not losing money, and it's really, really effective. But for most marketers, that is not the easy button. There's other easy buttons out there. It's not necessarily the boost button.
I'm going to have to ask you to introduce me to Dennis afterwards, just so I can get him on the show and we can just have a convo just about the boost button.
Yeah, Dennis Yu he's well known here in the U.S. His company is Bliss Metrics. He's one of the guest authors in the book. He has an amazing organization. On my website, ultimatefb.com, where you can find more information about the book, there's an interview I did with Dennis. And Dennis is one of the most generous people on earth, but he also has a conduit right into Facebook. He tells a story there about how he was spending $1 million a day on Facebook with Rosetta Stone software. The guy knows how to run Facebook ads, and he's got a great team. So if you want to hear that interview, I'll tease my website, ultimatefb.com, as you could hear that. But be glad to introduce you to Dennis.
We'll add a link to the show notes as well for that.
Cool. Thank you,
Bob,
Chris.
thank
I
you so
appreciate
much
it.
for your time. How can everybody find you online? Where's the best place to go? And we will obviously include a link as well to the book on our show notes as well.
Yeah, I'm excited about the book. It's ultimatefb.com. I've got a bunch of bonuses. I've got 10 interviews with people that help write the book. And there's some really good, insightful stuff. Perry Marshall, Ryan Dice, Jeff Walker, Brian Kurtz. These are a lot of names that people know if you've been around marketing for a while. People that I'm honored to have as friends. who agreed to contribute. So I've got interviews from all of them, and there's a link there directly to Amazon to get the book. And just really appreciative letting me talk about it a little bit, Chris, and some, taking time to talk to me about this. I'm really honored to be on your show.
It's been awesome, Bob. Thank you so much. And again, is there anywhere in particular other than Ultimate FB, any of the social channels that you recommend people to try and find you on?
All my links there, like I have links to my Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube channel right there. So that would be the best place to get centrally located and orientated to where you can talk to Bob.
Fantastic. Bob, thank you so much again.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you.